Alright, we're back. So I'm going to go over field report number 4 where I left off. And just making sure we have, 2 more tabs left after this. So this is for my video project Urania, or just my idea in general. Essentially an AI that has advanced astrological texts involved in it, embedded into its system. And this is to essentially help people learn astrology. If you've seen my other videos, you see where I'm essentially explaining what it is. And now I'm going over it in more detail. So this is part 2. Make sure to watch part 1 if you're going to watch this. So the quantum of meaning. Core question. What is the fundamental unit of astrological meaning and how do they combine? Linguistic analysis. We applied computational linguistics to 5,000 astrological texts, treating them as a specialized language. We searched for the atomic units of meaning. Discovery. The symbolon. The basic unit isn't a planet or sign, but a planet in sign, in house, in aspect network, what we are calling a symbolon. These function like semantic primes. The grammar of combination. We identified combinatorial rules. Aspect algebra. Conjunction equals addition, A plus B. Square equals tension, A versus B. Trine equals harmony, A with B. Opposition equals dialogue, A going backwards and forwards with B. Sign modifiers. Signs function as adverbial modifiers on planetary verbs. Mars, to act, in Aries, boldly, to act boldly. Mars in Cancer, protectively, to act protectively. Information theoretic breakthrough. By measuring the information density of chart interpretations, we found novice interpretations, 2 to 3 bit sentence, cliched, master interpretations, 7 to 9 bit sentence, novel insights, the maximum theoretical limit, 12-bit sentence, completely original. Urania's output should target 6 to 8-bit sentence, expert level without becoming incomprehensible. The meaning entropy metric. We're developing a measure of interpretive entropy, how many equally valid interpretations a chart configuration supports. Some placements have low entropy, clear meaning, others high, many possibilities. This becomes Urania's uncertainty quantification mechanism. Field report number 5, the dark constellations. Core question. What has been systematically excluded, suppressed, or forgotten in the astrological tradition, and should Urania restore it? Archaeology of omission. We mapped citation networks across 2,000 years of texts, identifying which authors were systematically ignored, which techniques disappeared, and why. Cultural biases in preservation. Findings, the suppressed corpus. The heretical techniques, late medieval Arabic astrological magic, talismanic elections, Renaissance astrological image making, 19th century meteorological astrology, weather prediction. The marginalized voices, women astrologers, only 3% of our corpus. Non-Western traditions treated as alternative rather than central. Working class popular astrology, almanacs, and folk traditions. The dangerous knowledge. Excuse me. Techniques for timing death. Mostly suppressed after 1700. Political prediction, often self-censored. Herbal medical astrology made illegal with medical licensing. The Uranian dilemma. Option A, train Urania only on the respectable canon. Option B, include everything with appropriate contextual warnings. Option C, create a shadow Urania that knows the forbidden techniques but only reveals them with special authorization. Our decision, the palimpsest model. Urania will know everything but will layer interpretations, mainstream view first, then alternatives, flag controversial techniques with historical context, require explicit unlocking for certain sensitive areas, Surface suppressed voices when relevant. Revolutionary possibility. Urania could become the first system to reconstruct lost techniques by finding patterns in fragmentary references, essentially performing astrological archaeology. Field report number 6, the consciousness problem. Core question: can an AI truly understand astrology without consciousness? And if not, what's the best approximation? The hard problem of hermeneutics. Astrology fundamentally involves interpretation, which presupposes a consciousness doing the interpreting, an understanding of what it means to be human, a capacity for meaning making. The spectrum of understanding. We identified 5 levels an AI could achieve: pattern recognition, detect aspects, signs, information retrieval, quote relevant texts, rule application, apply interpretive rules, contextual synthesis, weave multiple factors, meaning generation, create novel, insightful interpretations. Most AI approaches stop at level 3. We are aiming for level 5. The as-if consciousness architecture. Instead of trying to create consciousness, we are engineering consciousness proxies. Empathy simulation, pattern matching between chart configurations and human emotional states from literature. Narrative intelligence, generating coherent life stories from symbolic elements. Qualia database, mappings between astrological configurations and reported subjective experiences. The Turing test for astrologers. We propose a new evaluation. Can Urania's interpretations pass as human in blind readings with clients? Peer review by master astrologers? Depth of insight over time? Radical humility. We are programming epistemic humility directly into the architecture. Built-in acknowledgement of its own limitations, regular prompts to consult human experts, statements like, as an AI, I cannot express or experience this transit, Statements like, as an AI, I cannot experience this transit as you will. But the tradition suggests, kind of like a magic 8-ball, if you will. I had a whole brain fart. Field report number 7, the ethical cosmos. That's kind of just what having a Mercury in Pisces and a shit ton of planets in Pisces is like every day. My brain just farting. Field report number 7, the ethical cosmos. Core question. Wow, it's a day after my birthday, February 27th. Core question. What ethical framework should govern an AI that interprets something as personal as a birth chart? The unique ethical landscape. Astrological AI operates in a novel ethical space, not medical but deeply personal, not financial advice but can influence decisions, not deterministic but often heard as fateful, not a religion but touches spiritual dimensions. The 10 principles. After consulting with ethicists, astrologers, and clients, we developed agency primacy, always emphasize human choice, uncertainty, transparency, quantify and disclose confidence levels, cultural humility, acknowledge tradition boundaries, harm prevention, avoid predictions that could cause panic, beneficence focus, frame interpretations as growth opportunities, tradition fidelity, don't invent, synthesize, privacy sacredness, chart data is intimate, access justice, don't create elite-only tools, continual consent, users control depth of interpretation, human oversight always suggests expert consultation. The ethical temperature metric, we're developing a real-time measure of interpretation safety. Green, general spiritual insight. Yellow, specific life advice, require disclaimers. Red, health, financial, death topics, require human referral. The responsibility dilemma. If Urania gives advice that leads to harm, are we responsible? Is the user responsible for following AI advice? Is the astrological tradition itself responsible? Our solution, multi-layered warnings, recording of all sessions, and mandatory review for red temperature outputs. A synthesis report, the Uranian mandala, the integrated vision. Urania is emerging not as a tool, but as a new epistemological entity, a bridge between quantitative computation and qualitative interpretation, historical tradition and contemporary consciousness, universal patterns and individual uniqueness, Eastern cyclic thinking and Western linear thinking. The core insight. After 3 years of exploration, we understand that we're not building an astrology AI, but an AI that understands how humans use astrology, which is fundamentally different. The final architecture metaphor, the living library. Urania will be. The librarian knows where everything is. The scholar understands context and connections. The storyteller weaves narratives from fragments. The therapist knows how to frame insights helpfully. The ethicist guards against misuse, but always with a sign on the door: human experience required for full understanding. Projection forward. By 2030, Urania might help rediscover lost astrological techniques, facilitate unprecedented cross-traditional dialogue, generate entirely new symbolic frameworks, become a case study in AI-human collaborative meaning-making, or it might simply help people understand themselves better through an ancient art now mediated by the most modern of technologies. Either outcome would be revolutionary. These field reports document the conceptual journey. The technical implementation follows, but the philosophy precedes the code. We build not just what we can, but what we should. Thank you for watching this video. Oops, we're not finished. Let's just keep going, actually. Okay, so I totally forgot I did this. A field guide, a manual for navigating the contested cosmos for practitioners of advanced astrological synthesis, and also the Noetic Academy of Celestial Systems, which, if you guys want to humor me for a second, which most of my channel, I need you to humor me, because the thing is, in a few years' time, this is actually genius. Like, this is actually genius right now. I am a genius. So I need everybody to bear with me. So let's just go ahead and jump into the field guide real quick, and then I'll just make a separate video, because I have a shit ton more videos I want to put out. So I'll talk about this, since we already got it started. So, foundational theory for this manual for navigating the contested cosmos for practitioners of advanced astrological synthesis. The Uranian epistemic framework, the three truths principle. Every astrological configuration exists in three simultaneous truth registers. Truth 1, historical literal, what the tradition actually says. For example, Saturn in Aries, Albertus Magnus, 1260 CE. Truth 2, symbolic resonance, the archetypal pattern independent of tradition, for example, the principle of limitation in the field of initiation. Truth 3, phenomenological experience, how this manifests in contemporary consciousness, for example, generational experience of structural collapse followed by forced innovation. Urania's first operation, hold all three truths without premature synthesis. The hermeneutic spiral, traditional astrology operates linearly, A to B to C. Urania operates spirally, ascension from literal to symbolic to phenomenological, descent from contemporary experience to archetype to historical precedent, rotation, examining each layer through different traditional lenses. For example, Mars retrograde in Gemini, Hellenistic, thwarted communication, need for tactical retreat, Vedic, Buddha afflicted by Mangala, rethinking intellectual aggression, modern, nervous system overwhelmed, requiring conscious slowing, synthesis, cognitive martial arts, fighting with ideas requires strategic pauses. The symbolic density index, a quantitative measure of a chart point's complexity. SDI equals T multiplied by A multiplied by H multiplied by P divided by C. So what is this? So T equals tradition weight, how many traditions comment on this. A equals aspect complexity, number and tension of aspects. H equals house dignity, angular, succedent, cadent, and traditional joys. P equals phase awareness, where in planetary cycle. C equals cultural contamination, how diluted by popular astrology, which is just knowing your sun sign. And here we just have some calculations I came up with. Urania's unique methodologies, multi-traditional synthesis protocols, the tradition's weaving algorithm, how Urania integrates conflicting interpretations. For example, pattern recognition, identify the core symbolic dilemma, for example, Venus and Scorpio, love versus control. Step 2, tradition mapping, plot each tradition's position on a multidimensional axis. Axis 1, fatalistic, psychological. Axis 2, collective, individual. Axis 3, predictive, descriptive. Axis 4, external, internal. Step 3, conflict resolution. Find the higher order pattern containing the contradictions. For example, Venus and Scorpio across traditions reveals the human dilemma of intimacy as both merger and autonomy. Step 4, contemporary translation. Express synthesis in accessible modern language without dilution. The temporal fold technique. Traditional astrology treats time linearly, natal to progressions to transits. Urania treats time as folded, the 5 temporal layers simultaneously considered: natal blueprint, the seed; progress actualization, the growing planet; transiting conditions, the weather; solar return emphasis, the annual theme; gestalt time, emergent pattern across all layers. Urania's innovation, the temporal interference pattern. When 2 time layers create constructive interference, amplification; when they create destructive interference, cancellation. For example, progressed Sun conjunct natal Jupiter during Jupiter return equals exponential growth potential. Aspect pattern topology. Beyond traditional aspect patterns, Urania recognizes fractal aspects when a planetary pattern repeats at different scales. Example, grand trine in water signs containing smaller grand trines and decans. Negative space patterns, meaningful emptiness, what's not aspected. For example, on an aspected planet as free radical in the system. Trans-traditional geometrics, Vedic Shashtyamsas, mapped onto Western harmonic charts. Chinese earthly branches interacting with Hellenistic lots. Phase-aware aspects. A square between waxing versus waning planets equals different meaning. Urania tracks planetary phase for all aspect interpretations. Advanced analytical frameworks. The 12-dimensional chart analysis. Traditional analysis examines planets in signs, houses, aspects. Urania adds 9 additional dimensions. Dimension 4, mythological position. Each planet's position in its mythological cycle. For example, Saturn during the Cronus devouring his children phase versus Roman Saturnalia phase. Dimension 5, historical echo. When this configuration last appeared historically, what happened then? Mundane astrology database. For example, current Saturn-Neptune cycle echoes 1989 Berlin Wall fall. Dimension 6, cultural modulation. How this configuration manifests differently in individualistic versus collectivist cultures, secular versus religious contexts, digital native versus analog generations. Dimension 7, shout out Nirvana. Cognitive style, planetary placements as information processing patterns. Mars in Virgo, debugging cognitive style. Venus in Aquarius, networked relating style. Dimension 8, somatic encoding, wherein the body this energy manifests based on traditional medical astrology and contemporary somatics. For example, Pluto in the 6th house, cellular level transformation of daily rituals. Dimension 9, evolutionary intention, the soul level lesson of challenging placements. Not Saturn square moon is bad, but Saturn square moon develops emotional resilience through. Dimension 10, quantum superposition, the multiple potential expressions before observation collapse. Urania calculates probability distributions for manifestation. Dimension 11, network effects, how this chart interacts with other charts in the person's life. Composite charts with significant others, parents, children, nation. Dimension 12, meta pattern, the chart's relationship to larger cycles, great year, precession, galactic alignment. Urania's signature techniques, the Hermetic translation protocol, converting between traditional languages. For example, converting Vedic nakshatras to Hellenistic terms. Step 1, identify nakshatra qualities, deity, symbol, motivation. Step 2, find Hellenistic equivalent concepts. Step 3, note where concepts don't translate, cultural unique. Step 4, create bridge concepts that honor both systems. Ajwini, horse-headed healers. Hellenistic, Chiron and Aries, quick healing through initiation. Bridge, swift restoration through courageous action. The contradiction mining method, where traditions disagree most strongly equals deepest insights. Procedure, identify maximum disagreement point, for example, Jupiter and fall in Capricorn. Plot all traditional positions. Find the meta pattern containing the disagreement. Formulate as a developmental dilemma. Result, Jupiter in Capricorn, the tension between expansion, Jupiter, and limitation, Capricorn, manifests as either cynical pragmatism or structured wisdom. The developmental task, building institutions that don't crush spirit. The temporal palindrome detection, patterns that read the same forward and backward in time. For example, progress chart symmetrical to natal indicates karmic completion themes, suggests this lifetime reworking ancient patterns. Urania scans for geometric symmetry, planetary phase echoes, house position mirroring, and aspect pattern reflections. Practical applications. The Uranian consultation protocol, the pre-session analysis. Before meeting the client, Urania generates core symbolic complex, CSC, the 3 to 5 most symbolically dense chart points, their interrelationships. Developmental trajectory map, where the person is in their planetary cycles. Next significant astrological milestones. Contradiction inventory, where the chart suggests internal conflicts, how different traditions would interpret them. Cultural translation guide, how to express these insights in the client's cultural language, what metaphors will resonate. The session architecture. Phase 1, grounding it in the literal, 5 minutes. State what the chart literally shows. You have Sun in Leo, Moon in Scorpio. Traditional synthesis, 10 minutes. How different traditions would view this. Hellenistic would emphasize, Vedic would note, modern would focus on. Symbolic emergence, 15 minutes. What pattern emerges from the synthesis. What all these traditions point towards is. Phase 4, contemporary application, 15 minutes. How this manifests in modern life. Practical implications and choices. Phase 5, temporal navigation, 15 minutes, where this is going, progressions, transits, how to work with upcoming cycles. The Uranian question protocol. Instead of what does this mean, Urania trains practitioners to ask which tradition's view of this resonates most with your experience. How have you navigated this symbolic tension in the past? What would the integrated expression of these conflicting energies look like? How does this pattern manifest at different scales of your life? What is this placement what is this placement asking you to remember or reclaim? Specialized Uranian techniques. The multi-generational analysis input, charts of person, parents, grandparents, process, identify repeating patterns, planetary positions, aspects, note what changes between generations, calculate karmic momentum, what's accelerating versus resolving, generate inheritance narrative, output. Your Saturn in the 4th house continues your grandmother's theme of creating security after loss, but where she built physical walls, you are asked to build emotional boundaries. The career architecture analysis. Traditional, Sun equals vocation, midheaven equals career. Uranian, 12-dimensional career analysis including skill signature, Mercury, Mars, hands, impact vector, Jupiter, Pluto, MC, midheaven, sustainability pattern, Saturn, 6th house, innovation capacity, Uranus, 11th house, soul alignment, North Node, Rahu, Sun, plus historical analysis of similar charts, career paths. The relationship synastry matrix. Beyond traditional synastry to developmental synchronicity, are they in complementary life cycles? Shadow activation, what is the other trigger to heal? Collective purpose, what larger work does the relationship serve? Multi-lifetime patterns, karmic astrology synthesized across traditions. Ethical and philosophical framework. The Uranian ethical protocols, the certainty spectrum. All Uranian outputs include certainty ratings. Empirical certainty, 0.9 or more. Mathematical, for example, the Sun is at 15 degrees Leo. Historical example, this configuration last occurred in 1642. Traditional consensus, 0.7 through 0.9. Multiple traditions agree, for example, Saturn represents structure. Traditional disagreement, 0.4 through 0.7. For example, traditions differ. Mars in Cancer is debilitated versus protective. Uranian synthesis, 0.3 through 0.6 are novel interpretations, always flagged as such. Speculative connection, 0.1 through 0.3, interesting but unproven correlations. The red line principles. Never, under any circumstances, does Urania predict death, disease, or specific tragedy, make financial recommendations, diagnose medical or psychological conditions. Speak with absolute certainty about another inner experience. Remove human agency from the equation. Instead, the transit suggests a period of significant transformation around health matters. Many with this pattern choose to implement preventive care routines. The cultural humility protocols. Always cite tradition of origin, flag when applying tradition A concepts to culture B, include disclaimers in the Western tradition, offer alternative cultural perspectives when available, and acknowledge gaps in our knowledge of marginalized traditions. The future of Uranian astrology. Ongoing research directions.
Astrological dream correlation database, collecting dreams during specific transits, building symbolic translation dictionary, biometric astrology, HRV, EEG hormone levels during transits, quantifying the somatic reality of planetary influences, collective consciousness mapping, social media sentiment analysis during transits, how planetary cycles affect collective mood. Archaeological astrology, reconstructing lost techniques through pattern recognition, digital restoration of fragmented texts. The Urania practitioner development path. Stage 1, apprentice, 1 to 2 years, learn Urania's interface and basic protocols, conduct supervised consultations. Stage 2, journeyman, 3 to 5 years, master multi-traditional synthesis, develop original Uranian techniques, mentor apprentices. Stage 3, master, 5 or more years, contribute to Urania's development, pioneer new research directions, set ethical standards for the community. Stage 4, elder, 10 or more years, guide the philosophical evolution of Uranian astrology, ensure wisdom transmission to next generations. Here is my appendix, Urania quick reference, the Uranian glyph system, extended glyphs for Uranian specific concepts. Here you go. Take a look at that. We have multi-traditional synthesis point, temporal fold, symbolic density above 0.7, cultural translation needed, karmic completion pattern. This is common Uranian interpretations, sun moon midpoint activated, traditional soul purpose emerging, Uranian integration of conscious will, sun and unconscious need, moon, creating a third thing greater than sum. Saturn return, traditional adulthood challenges. Uranian, first major structural reorganization of the self system based on accumulated living experience versus inherited conditioning. Pluto transits, traditional transformation. Uranian, irreversible restructuring of a life domain at cellular level, requiring death of previous identity in that area. The Uranian mantras. All traditions are true somewhere, but no tradition is true everywhere. The chart doesn't show what will happen, but what it means when it happens. We don't read the stars, we read how humans have read the stars for 4,000 years. Certainty ends where wisdom begins. Every interpretation is a translation. Every translation loses something and gains something. That is the end of this field guide. This document evolves as Urania learns. Submit corrections, additions, and ethical dilemmas to the Living Document Committee. Remember, Urania doesn't replace human wisdom, it amplifies it. The final interpretation always resides in the sacred space between chart, client, and practitioner. We are not astrologers, we are translators between the cosmos and consciousness, standing on the shoulders of 4,000 years of sky watchers. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one. It's going to be extensive, and it's going to be about Charlie Kirk, so stay tuned.